I present you with some poems to keep you warm through this dark night of hysteria that mass politics has driven us into as a weight. Assisting me in this endeavor are images from the Soviet montages Dziga Vertov. I'll just read. Form reflected through dark mirror is then skewered as if through water by the refractory movement of light. Here the pencil bends, is magnified. The incident ray redirected outward meets the lens of the eye. Correction, the photographer's binocular, lenses click, vision blurs, the retina struggles to meet the pattern. It is impossible. Impossible. Spectacle replicates, duplicates spectacle. Nothing is behind it except maybe distorted radio chatter. It is inscribed in the music bouncing back from the farther side of the moon. This next one is some speculative notes on the Anthropocene. Beneath the smell of piss and trash, which clings to the carapace like your Versace does, deep inside the husk of this planet, something is molten, viscous, alien, hypermassive, and it turns blind to how you think that somehow thinking has somehow to do with being, and as a corollary, that today you have declared the Anthropocene a reasonable venture because Rajasthan has superthermal plants. And for all of your pretensions that the internal combustion engine abolished space and time once and for all, doesn't Kukulan still feel a ways away? And back in '68, when some students scrawled on Parisian walls that beneath the paving stones there is beach, they might have known to take those stones and let them fly through the windows of the Café Prohibité before ordering their espresso drinks, knowing well that calling new elections would appease them anyway, because at least they would have discovered what it really was they were standing on. This next one is entitled Bastard Gospel. Here in the assemblage, atomic bodies who, according to psychogeographical dictum, accelerate past news rack, food truck, semi-pornographic magazine stand, garbage receptacle, accelerate soft body on hard concrete, urban terrain, flash shoe click, semi-predatory birds accelerate overhead, circling in non-migratory pattern, gyroscopic metaphysical spiral, accelerating along the magnetic field, through the magnetic field, cracked egg on hard concrete, Wi-Fi fried. Accelerating in the new radiator ecology, here in the new sound, I stop and I see you and you accelerate. A new canticle against all abstractions. Rat head crushed by leather boot, pavement, etc. The veil which, hitherto unseen, appears all at once, and is split into two, revealing behind it psychical anemia and flush. Orientalisms. Having already demonstrated that being and non-being are in fact one and the same, the last young Hegelian hallucinates visions of far Barat, and 1,000 sexless angels chanting in the tongue of Gog or Magog, an ancient tongue from before the flood. And beneath them, the Nephilim, keeping time with sticks, beat on Cyclopean mammoth skull, castrato men, howling and whining, until the sound of klaxon horn awakens, and he remembers Edward Said. I'm not ready to make a pact with you, Ezra Pound. Sorry about that. 13 years after they hung Mussolini from a meat hook at the Piazza Loreto, they let you out of the asylum. And without a hint of irony, in Naples you gave them the Roman salute. You said the real asylum was America, and you were right, but nobody loves a fascist, at least not the open, and especially not me. But I have loved you, Ezra Pound, like the child of a pig-headed father. As I think you once said yourself of another, maybe greater and more pig-headed than you. And yes, it is true that there is nothing more loathsome than a moralist, but couldn't you have finished your cantos instead of polishing your jackboots and striking a Horatian pose? Tennessee. Leave the dead to ash. What does form have to do with content? Electrify the whole. Tennessee Valley met the waters moving still. Maybe Jesus could turn water into wine, but I can get 146,000 kilowatts. Plug the river with a bit of concrete, gravity does the rest. A spark from the center, a discharge. Now the whole world is an electric field, and everyone's teeth are all buzzing with their mouths, can't make sense of all chattering. Total subsumption. Even the little leaves of old oak trees are conducting hot electrical love out through radial branches. Listen, you can hear it on radio. Remember the Socius. Just a little too much voltage and a smoking hole. Replace the lack with a node and distribute. This we call negating the negation. Flick it in the ashtray. Crisscross wires in their infinite array hold up at least 3/4 of the sky, being real human connection. Pound the earth flat. Old Appalachia whittled itself down. There are still mountains to level. Consider how the warm glow of synthetic light beat back the dark until there wasn't anymore. Consider this. We call this Sol Invictus, the ashen dead in the ashtray. This is Revelation, a prose poem after the last seal. Beneath a narrow causeway, bathed in the ghoul light, under a sick and impartial sun, children gather, fat-tongued, black-eyed, as an old locomotive wheezes overhead. Under a sick and impartial sun, years now have passed, as an old locomotive wheezes overhead, since the Lamb opened the seal. Years now have passed. Since God sunk beneath the clouds, since the Lamb opened the seal. And heaven fell silent, since God sunk behind the clouds, and cut the tongue of every prophet, and heaven fell silent. The sky has gone dark, and cut the tongue of every prophet, and blot out every eye. The sky has gone dark with locomotive smoke, and blot out every eye. Children gather, fat tongue, black eye. The sky has gone dark beneath a narrow causeway, bathed in the ghoul light. John the Boy. John the Boy was 9 years old when the world was all green and sick and sweet and too full. In those days he made his legs to run in flat fields where lush grass that would smell like too much dew grew thick and free. His bare feet found mud and left tracks that would fade in the rain when it did rain, and when it did rain he would hide by an old birch tree that he held cuts from his small knife, and it was the same small knife that left cuts in the legs and ears and paws of the spring hares he caught in traps in the lush green grass of the flat fields. He could twist the knife and the soft tongue of the things, and they would twist with it and make the noise hares make when they squirm and look with sad eyes at John the Boy. And John the Boy would bop them on the head like the field mice in the song that Paul, his dad, had taught him a long time ago. And when the warm red would come up out of the soft hair toms and spill out on the lush grass, John the Boy with his wild eyes wide would feel full with too much life and would feel strong like Paul, his dad. One day John the Boy found a fat old doe laid out on the ground with a hole in its neck too big to be from his small knife. John the Boy saw a squirm and a stir in the tongue of the doe, and so he took his small knife and cut a big gash from side to side, and its pink gut fell out. He stuck his hand in the gut, and he found where the squirm was from. He pulled out a fawn with his red, wet hands. It was still, and tied around the neck to the tongue of the doe by a flesh rope, and when he tried to cut the cord, the fawn kept still and blackened, so he left it to lay. He saw the squirm was still there in the gut of the doe, and so he reached in and pulled out a new live fawn, and he cut the flesh rope with his small knife. He sat and he watched as the fawn took a step and then fell and then stood and then ran to the brush where he could not see it. And John the Boy was in the land when he looked and saw how the flat fields were bare. Skip through some things. Listerine Jack. To bathe, the dull, angry ache of consummate sobriety draws a spectre to the sea of Listerine. He will wade there past the mermaid bone shore and the needle-born junkies who pick at leftover carrion, pigeon-meat, oxy pills, red sun throbbing against gelatin sky. The sea glistens clear, green Listerine. Wave crests, shore-licking beach bones and keratin nails of scavengers. In his beard he carries dirt clods and pale robin's eggs, whose mothers flew east to Greenland, or maybe sought warmer weather in Puerto Rico. Bare feet, with their soles padded by the callous memoirs of nomadism, crushed, weathered, but still sharp stones, leaving behind small, thin, red-lined hisses, bitter and familiar, this ghost still cleaves to flesh. And hair, too, matted, long and gray, hair that has not felt clean water in months. His gaze fixed to the sea, eyes of robin blue, he marches across the rock-torn coast, travel-worn feet we'd see with an antiseptic sting. Knee-deep now, waist-deep further, with apostolic intent he immerses himself once dipped, the plunge that cleanses awakens, mint-breathed and pure, before finally, with a cool wet burn, lays upon tender red wounds and osmatizes. He rises, made anew, born again, minty clean, slogged. This is an erasure. The concept, a poet at a loss for images. Mollusks construct geometrical forms. Intelligible vortex has laid bare the roots, the valves, beauty exteriorizes, a naive observer, empty shell, empty nest of the inhabited imagination. Nomadology. In the shells of abandoned Chinese cities, nomads are making camp. I read it on the internet. There, yurts are embroidered, like blue, like open sky, in winding patterns that reanimate the ghosts of an ancient horde. There are whispers in Beijing that the great Khan himself has come again, and already at night one can hear the galloping of 10,000 horses. He will sweep in from the north, but there will be no fracture this time. Within the month, he will be feasting in New York and soon Paris, I think. He has gardens to uproot. I think of rhizomes in the image of retreat, or is it return? No blame. ATMs. You and your closest friends have formed a roving gang in one of the now abandoned industrial centers. You burned the last ATMs years ago because money didn't mean anything anymore anyway, but mostly because there wasn't much else to do in those days. Yes, there were unprovoked killings for a while. Maybe you still wake up in cold sweat when you remember. We all did things then we regret now. For Edgar Gray. Years after the final abolition of the antithesis between town and country, an archaeologist of the future had just uncovered the steel sarcophagus of the composer. And in a metallic voice, a machine voice, overhuman, it began to intone words of revelation, a new hierophany, and it went like this. Kate, in the filth of his millennial rot, feeling somehow ancient, Byzantine even, gazing all the way to Palestine, the saintly one, the angelic one, the last remaining aristocrat in spirit, sinks his back into the dank mud of it all. And there will be a time for seers to once again declaim their manic verse in the open courtyards of the bourgeois cafes and gathering halls of the world. But for now, the inferior man, approximate and small in his calculations of good and evil, is the order of the day. Out in the suburbs, the immortal Banloos, whose boulevards stretch out to the very limits of terra firma, the careful allocations of bread administered by the splendid bureaucracy, ship out along the avenues of the material conquest. But for now, he's in the wild islands, like some hero of Blake, having cyclonic visions of the only holy road, lonely, open, unadorned by the endless boredom of the architectural scientists and the automatic machinery of the urban planners, who funnel little bodies through the causeways like so many rats with their tails tied together in Bavarian sewers. King of the rats, the scum prince, mug prophet of the unheroic times, frivolous and violent in love as in all things, will have his revenge on the comfortable soft glow of the electric glows. He will come to gather the machine sounds, the synthetic orchestra of limitless vibrating urban space, and twist them into garish steel gestures that would make even Priapus blush. If Goethe was right when he said that architecture is frozen music, then let our cities be as fantastic and as brutal as our electric symphonies, voracious stomach bowl structures of the unfettered appetite. No, there will be no resentment, because he only does this because they do not yet grow right enough, because their spiders do not yet grow high enough, because their love is not yet bold enough. But like a homunculus suspended by telephone wire, he lies dormant for now, not even a fetus. The placenta warmer and more nourishing he can tell, because the telephone wire runs right out through the umbilicus, out through the right fat belly out there, and splits at the edge of the bed, and he with them splits with them out there. He is in a warm way in there, rubbing against the milky walls, knowing himself in a warm way, feeling the walls and feeding off telephone chatter with the sound of the salesman and the barking and scoffing and the spatial agreements and the poetics of legwork and the